Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new video on the Colombians Football Report. We're going to be talking about all the games that took place on day 7 of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. So, the first game that took place today was Portugal versus the DR Congo. And before I talk about this game, make sure to subscribe to the channel because 82% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed to the channel. So, make sure to subscribe so that I can continue to grow and bring better content in the future. Now let's talk about the game. Portugal were obviously favorites. Everyone wanted to see how Ronaldo would respond after Messi scored a hat trick yesterday. But the reality is that Cristiano Ronaldo had a very poor game. He did break the record as the oldest outfield player to ever play in the World Cup, and he also officially played in his sixth World Cup. He's now equal with Messi in that record. But despite that, this was a day to forget for Cristiano Ronaldo. He barely had any good chances, and the few chances he had, he couldn't finish them. And in general, Portugal, they looked quite disappointing. A lot of people are expecting a lot from Portugal, especially due to that insane midfield they have with Joao Neves, Vitinha, and Bruno Fernandes. But the reality is that the DR Congo, they defended very well today, and they didn't let Portugal have too many good chances. Now, Portugal, they still did take the lead. A great cross from Pedro Neto found Joao Neves, and he scored to make it 1-0 in just 6 minutes. However, despite that goal, the DR Congo, they didn't quit. They didn't let that goal get to their heads. They actually started playing better after that goal. They had a few chances, and right before the end of the first half, they scored thanks to a brilliant cross from Mazuaku that found Joan Risa, and he scored the DR Congo first ever World Cup goal. So what a moment that was for the DR Congo. The celebration was spectacular as well, and it was a well-deserved goal to draw the game 1-1. In the second half, you could tell that Portugal, they were going for the win. They only wanted the 3 points. They were not happy with just one. Congo, they were happy with the 1 point, but that didn't stop them from having a few good counterattacks in the second half. But in general, Portugal, they were probably the slightly better team, at least on the attacking front in the second half. But DR Congo were immense defensively. All of their defenders today had spectacular games. The goalkeeper Ampassi was also pretty good. And off the bench, some players for Portugal in Conceição and Leao, they tried to do things, but all things considered, they dealt with it with ease. And in the end, the game ended 1-1. It's a deserved draw for the DR Congo. Portugal are going to be very disappointed with that result, but they have no one else to blame but themselves. And I mean, it wasn't just Ronaldo who didn't have a good game. In general, the whole team didn't have a good game. Plus, it just feels wrong to only blame Ronaldo, especially since he's one of my favorite players ever. But yeah, he wasn't good, but neither were his team. I would really say only Joao Neves had a good performance. He is such a fantastic footballer. He might be the best midfielder in the world, even better than Vitinha, in all honesty. There is no reason for a player so short to be that good at headers. He has scored multiple headers, and he's quite good in the air for a short guy, and he's just an insane player. Portugal are so lucky to have him. But yeah, besides that, they weren't really good enough today, and the draw was the deserved result. The second game we're talking about is England versus Croatia. This is one of the games that everyone was waiting for. Two teams that have played against each other many times, and they have a bit of a rivalry now. And that first half was insane. England got a very early penalty. Harry Kane missed it, but then it had to be retaken because Livakovic was off his line, and he scored on the second attempt. And then Baturina scored a screamer to tie the game 1-1. An insane goal from outside the box. Jordan Pickford, he got a touch on it, but he couldn't keep it out. However, just a few minutes later, Harry Kane, he scored again, this time from a corner. A fantastic header from him. It was a bullet header into the bottom corner. But just a few minutes after that, the FC Dallas striker, Musa, he scored after some brilliant hold-up play from Ivan Perisic. And this first half was just back and forth. Both teams, they were scoring, they were going at each other. It was just a proper World Cup game. In the second half, though, things calmed down a little bit, but they were still very good highlights from the second half. I mean, Jude Bellingham, he scored only 2 minutes after the second half started. A brilliant goal from him. He was very good today. And then after that, Croatia, they tried to make some chances, but they kind of struggled to make some. Pickford, he did have to make some saves here and there, but it wasn't like Croatia were exactly battering England at any point in that second half. England, they seem to have the game under control now. It looked like the halftime talk was all about keeping control, and that is exactly what England did. And then, with only 5 minutes left, Rashford, he scored to make it 4-2 and seal the win for England. That is a fantastic way to start for England. And the way they played today, it convinces me that these guys could actually win the World Cup because they looked very organized, especially in that second half. Obviously, they have world class players in almost every position. So this could actually be the year where it finally comes home for England. I do want to give a quick shout out to Luka Modric. He played in his fifth World Cup at the age of 40. He didn't have a good game in all honesty, but that's still an insane record for him. He is truly one of the greatest midfielders of all time. Now we have Ghana versus Panama. And unfortunately, I feel like this was the worst game of match day one. It was the most boring one to watch. The first half, it was boring, but there were many times in this match day where the first half was kind of boring and then the second half was springing to life. But this didn't happen in this game. This was the first time that happened in this World Cup where neither the first half nor the second half sprung into life. And unfortunately, it was a dull watch. I do think Panama, for most of the game, were the slightly better team. They probably deserved more in this game, but they couldn't finish their chances. And Ghana, they held on and they went on a counterattack right at the end. A brilliant pass from Semenyo found Brian Thomas Asante, and Asante, he crossed the ball across goal, and Jerenki, he scored a tap in to give Ghana the win at the 95th minute, the 5th minute of stoppage time. And that could be a crucial 3 points for Ghana because their next two games are against England and Croatia. So these 3 points, they really needed to get them today if they want to be at least one of the best third place teams to go through. A devastating result for Panama. They definitely deserved a bit more. They deserved at least a draw. But Ghana, they took their one good chance right at the end, and they are the ones who are going to celebrate the 3 points. And also a shout out to the goalkeeper Asade, who plays in the Ghanaian league. He had a spectacular performance in the second half after their main goalkeeper got injured in the first half. And now this is the moment that I have been waiting for this whole time. Finally, my national team played in the World Cup. It took so long. We were literally the last game of the match day. I personally felt quite nervous for this game, even though, it was Uzbekistan and obviously we were expected to win. But with Colombia, you just can never be overconfident. And especially in this World Cup where we have already had multiple shocks. But since Colombia is my national team, obviously I'm going to go a little bit more in depth than I did with the other games because I know more about Colombia football than the rest of the other national teams. So Nestor Lorenzo, he started a 4-3-3 formation, and it's basically the same team as always, but with one difference, and that was 22-year-old Gustavo Puerta starting ahead of Richard Rios. And I have to say, that was a brilliant decision because Gustavo Puerta, in the friendlies before the World Cup, he looked amazing, and today, he was absolutely bossing that midfield. He's just such a tidy player to have in the midfield. He's only 22 years old. He's never going to run out of energy. He got the assist for the second goal, and he was just everywhere all over the field. I am such a huge fan of Gustavo Puerta. I think he's going to make it big. And if he can have a good World Cup and Colombia can have a good World Cup, I think he could get a big transfer already after the World Cup is done. But for the first 40 minutes, Colombia, they were struggling to break down Uzbekistan. Their defense was good, which was expected because that is their strong suit, their defense. However, after creating chances, one of those chances being Luis Diaz hitting the post, we finally found our goal. Luis Diaz, he put a brilliant cross in. No one could have expected that cross. And it found Munoz, who he scored a brilliant volley with insane technique. One of the goals of the tournament so far. Because the assist was insane and the finish was insane and we took the 1-0 lead. Finally, that was a breather for us because I had the feeling that scoring the first goal was going to be the hardest. And after we scored the first goal, that's when the game would start to get a little bit easier for us, at least on the attacking front. And in the second half, Colombia, they still kept trying to score. But it was actually Uzbekistan who gave us a huge shock. They tied the game 1-1 after a huge mistake from Camilo Vargas. And the reality is that this goalkeeper is not good enough. And the worst thing is he's not even our worst goalkeeper because Montero, for his club, he plays good, but for the national team, he hasn't shown it. He hasn't shown that same level that he's shown for Vélez Sarsfield. And Ospina, obviously he's a legend for Colombia, but he's 37 now, and he's only in the World Cup just to be the third choice goalkeeper and to be that old head in the dressing room. So Camilo Vargas is probably still our best goalkeeper, and that says a lot about how bad our goalkeepers was because that mistake that he made was just juvenile. A professional goalkeeper should not be making a mistake like that. Either you try to catch that ball or you parried it away for a corner kick. Instead, he parried it right into the path of the Uzbek player Vey Zulaviev, and he got an easy tap in. That was Uzbekistan's first ever World Cup goal, so that's a moment that their fans will never forget. And I was getting worried at this point because obviously drawing to Uzbekistan would be a disaster, especially after Portugal dropped points. So imagine we drop points after that. It would have been such a huge wasted opportunity for us. But thankfully, the hero showed up, and that hero was Luis Diaz. It just had to be him. Gustavo Puerta, he won the ball high up the field, passed it to Luis Diaz, and he finished it into the bottom corner. The keeper got a touch on it, but he couldn't keep it out. And that goal, that was the goal to give us some relief. And then later on into the game, Uzbekistan started growing into it because they knew that they were only losing by one goal, and that with just one good attack, they could tie the game. And this is where I have to criticize the manager, Lorenzo, because he started making some changes that I didn't like. Especially right before stoppage time, he put in Castaño and Gomez for Luis Diaz and Arias. Now, I'm a huge fan of Gomez. I think he's a baller. I think he has potential to be a breakout star in the World Cup. But why are you taking off Luis Diaz? That's just so risky. He should be playing every single minute of this World Cup, unless if we are winning like 3 or 4-0. And Kevin Castaño, I mean, for me, he's just a terrible footballer. He doesn't even get on River Plate's bench a lot of times. I also didn't like the fact that he took off Gustavo Puerta, even though I do think Richard Rios is a decent player off the bench. But Gustavo Puerta, he should have stayed. He should have played the 90 minutes. But in the end, it all worked out because after a brilliant clearance from Lukumi, it found Cucho Hernandez, who came off the bench for Suarez, and he was getting fouled, but he didn't stop fighting for that ball. He got straight back up. He dribbled past the defender, and then he just put in the perfect cross to Campas. And Campas, he headed it into the bottom corner, and that gave us the 3-1 win. What a crucial win that was for Colombia. We are now top of the group on 3 points. Congo and Portugal obviously both have 1 point, and Uzbekistan have 0 points. And I liked the game from Luis Diaz. Obviously, he was man of the match. Gustavo Puerta, obviously, already talked about that. And Daniel Munoz, I thought was very good today. Lerma, he was not precise in some passes, but I do think he did his job well. John Arias, he had a great game for me. He's just one of those players that he can help control the game from the midfield. Luis Suarez, he didn't have many shots, but I think when he was playing, he was doing okay. He was pressing, he was getting himself involved. And I also liked both of the center backs today. Davinson Sanchez and John Lukumi, both of them were fantastic today. And in the case of Lukumi, I think he's a player from Colombia who could get a big move after the World Cup ends. He deserves to be at a club that's bigger than Bologna. With all due respect to Bologna, they're a good team, but he should be at a team like Juventus or Inter Milan, in my opinion. He's that good. So obviously, I'm very happy that Colombia won, and our next game is against the DR Congo. That is a must-win game. Hopefully, we win that game, and hopefully, Uzbekistan could get a draw against Portugal. Because if that happens, that means we would have guaranteed first place in our group only 2 games in. And that would be the dream situation. By the way, the stadium today, the Estadio Azteca, it was completely full of Colombians. The atmosphere was insane. It was our first World Cup game in 8 years, and everyone was just so excited. It was such a joyous event, and obviously, I'm super happy that Colombia won. We could have done better, but you gotta take the results against any team in the World Cup because there are no weak teams anymore. Uzbekistan, they put off a good fight, and I have to give a lot of respect to them. So that is it for the recap of Day 7 of the FIFA World Cup 2026. Make sure you like the video, and like I said earlier, make sure you subscribe to the channel, I have nothing more to say, and have a good night, everyone.